Hi, I'm Kat. Welcome to Kat's Coffee Talks. And today I have a wonderful guest that I've not met before. And that's a first for me. So I'm super excited because all my questions will be like totally like, duh, I don't know. Anyway, Jeremy Whittington, thanks for coming. How are you
Oh,
today?
thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Happy to be on
That's
here.
great. Well, I'm going to read some of your very impressive bio. And I have some questions for you, mister. So
Sounds
here we
good.
go. Jeremy Whittington is Managing Artistic Director at Stage Left Theater in downtown Spokane, Washington. He earned his AA in theater production from Ohio University and graduated summa cum laude in 2014 with his BFA in design from Sanford Brown, Miami. Jeremy has been the resident designer for many theaters, including Public Theater of San Antonio, the Modern Theater, Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, and Lake City Playhouse. His imaginative scene designs have earned him accolades from across the country, and his set for Disney's Newsies continues to tour at theaters and colleges in the southern United States. Jeremy's scenic design for A Lonely Planet was chosen for one of the top 20 in the nation by the American Association of Community Theaters, AACT, and will be adjudicated June 20th for a potential win. That's amazing. I'm so
Pretty
excited to
cool.
hear about that. Yeah. Though scenic design is Jeremy's main form of artistic expression, he is also an accomplished actor and illustrator. He has performed on stages all over the United States and reprised the role of Sam Bick in Assassins in both Idaho and Texas. Jeremy has illustrated two children's books, The Night the Stars Fell and Superboy Maxima. What a cool title. And has designed many seasons of poster and promotional art for numerous theaters. Some of his work can be seen by visiting his website, www.jeremycreates.com. And that's Jeremy, creates. Jeremy has continued to bring theater to the public during the pandemic by adapting Stage Left to new streaming technologies. He was the recipient of the 2020 SAGA grant which allowed him to produce 4 one-person shows to stream online during the shutdown. I saw some of those. 2 of the shows have been produced while 2 are in the works to stream in August and September. He sits on the board of directors for Odyssey Youth Movement, an LGBTQIA+ youth activity and drop-in center in Spokane, and is a proud member of the AACT and NAACP. You're a busy boy, and I gotta make sure I'm all plugged in here. I just heard something. I hope we don't get shut down. If we do, we'll start her up again.
Oh,
Anyway, welcome. That's impressive.
oh,
So cool. I don't even know where to start with you.
I'm
So,
definitely
well, one
blessed with a
question.
full life.
It's a lot. You're just so accomplished. So, I read somewhere that you started acting at age 5
I
in
did.
front
Yeah,
of for USO show. So talk about that. Are you like a military brat or
I
something, or
am.
what's that all about?
I was born in
You
Long Beach,
okay?
California, 1971.
Okay.
And my dad was in the Navy at the time. He met and married my mom actually 9 months and 3 days before I was born. and
Oh,
yeah, and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles were very into theater and performing and film down in the Hollywood area back in the 70s. So when I was 5, they kind of swooped me along, and I started singing at USO shows. I'd sing Donny Osmond songs and Elton John songs in my little velour pants and my sequence vests. Totally a fun time, definitely.
oh, that's great. So one of your parents got you involved in that, or someone in the family? Just
Yeah, my
you
mom's
probably
parents.
came out of the womb singing, going da da da. How
I,
you like
I
me
think
now,
I
right?
did.
And they went, "Oh, this boy needs to be on stage."
I definitely did. I've always kind of been a character, so it kind of just followed that I should be on stage doing things like that.
So great. That's so great. Well, I have to just say, I'm just so honored that you're on this show with me because we've not met. And I've heard so much about you from so many friends, and I've seen some of your work, on stage and off. I know that you did like the big moon thing for Hera and Philip's wedding. And,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so
Yeah.
I pay attention to things like that because I'm a visual artist as well. And oh, who did that? So, we met on Facebook, but we've never met in person. So a lot of this is news to me. Um, art, let's talk about that. What got you involved in art?
Well, from a very young age, I picked up a pencil and started drawing things. I remember when I was in first grade, we had a book report that we had to do, and I chose green eggs and ham. And I drew all the pictures in my little book report, and my teacher sent it home with an F on it, telling my mother that I was not allowed to trace anything. And she sent a note back saying he never traces anything; he draws this all himself. So. Um,
Fabulous. I love
yeah,
it.
after that, my dad went into the ministry, and we went to the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary where he studied. So I spent a little over 3 years in New Orleans when I was very young, and was fortunate enough to go to the New Orleans School of Art, Drama, and Music. So at a very young age, I was thrust into this very odd, very art-driven kind of environments from a very young age. So
Right.
it's always been a part of me. Yeah.
Well, and the duality of your father going into the church and you've been in New Orleans and all of that, um,
It was very
just all
interesting.
poured, it just poured into you and created you who you are. I'm so
It
glad.
absolutely did. Yes. Yeah, he got his first church in very rural Hobson, Alabama, and that's when I started to realize that I was gay. So it was a very interesting time between my father and I, learning to appreciate one another for who we were. And we're best friends now, and we have been best friends for
That's awesome.
really my whole life. So
Well,
that
you're
turned
very
out.
fortunate.
I am very
Yeah.
fortunate, definitely.
You really are. So I just wanted to talk about you're on the board of directors for the Odyssey Youth Movement at LGBTQIA plus. Is that how you say it? Plus?
It is. That is how you say it.
Okay, Youth and Drop-In Center. And as naive as I am, I had to look it up. But every time I watch Saturday Night Live, I have to go to the modern, what is it called? The Urban Dictionary. And go,
Oh yeah,
what are
yeah.
they talking about? So how did you get involved in that organization?
So last year when we were putting on our last production before COVID hit, we did Lonely Planet back in February of 2020, and I wanted to reach out to the queer community and get some sponsorship and get some partnership going. So Spokane AIDS Network partnered with us, Spokane AIDS Network, which is does great work here in Spokane,
I do.
and Ian Radich, who is the executive director at Odyssey. I contacted him and I said, "Hey, we would really love it if some of your kids could come and see the show. We'll have a preview show for them." And some of them did come. It was great getting to meet them. And then about a month later, after that production, Ian called me and said, "We're looking for more people for our board of directors, and your enthusiasm and your experience in the arts community would really add some value to our board of directors." So
Yeah.
yeah, so I interviewed with them, and it seemed like a perfect match. So it's been great.
That's great. Well, I would think that you as an individual, but also you with all of your skills, talent, and experience would tick off a lot of checks for them with kids that come in and how you could pull them into music, theater, design, all those things that what a valuable asset you would be for that organization. So that's really good news. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, so now your boyfriend Alex, he's not into the theater at all. Is he involved in that organization? What's the
He
deal
is
with what's
not.
his problem?
I know. So
That story, I want to hear
I
it.
know. I moved back from Texas in August of 2019, where I'd been designing sets down there for a few years at the Public Theater. And basically, when I got off the plane, I got a call from Troy Nickerson, a director here in town, a good friend of mine. And he said, "Hey, we're
Love
doing,"
Troy.
I do too. And he said, "We're doing Three Penny Opera. I really want you to audition for us." So I auditioned and got one of the leads as JJ Peachum in that show. And um, right when we were starting rehearsals for that, my best friend Ted called me up and said, "Hey, I have a friend that you really should meet. He's interesting. He's quirky. He has social anxiety disorder, which is awesome. He's really into sci-fi and fantasy like you are. And he came out of the closet 2 years ago. So he
Oh,
doesn't have a lot of friends because he doesn't like big crowds. But I think you guys would really get along and have a lot to talk about. So I got set up on a blind coffee date and I met Alex at the Rocket Bakery here in Browns Edition. And we've been together ever since. Fell head over heels for him. And like I said, I was in Three Penny Opera at the time. So Ted and Tanya already had tickets and they got a ticket for Alex to come and see the show. This is the first time he'd set foot in a theater and seen any live theater in his life. And he's 36. So he came and saw it and he was like, that was really interesting. I mean, he is just, he's a man's man. Like he literally and figuratively. He's like, oh, it was really cool. I didn't know what to expect with all the music. And so then he started coming to shows with me and he really appreciates everything that I've taken him to. Some things more than others. He loved Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder at the Civic. That was his favorite thing that he's seen so far.
oh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, he came and saw Lonely Planet. We saw Present Laughter at Civic, which was great. So he has an appreciation for it, but it's very foreign to him. He's not the kind of person that would ever get on stage or anything like that. But yeah, we get along great because of that, I think. You know, we have very, very separate lives and we love each other unconditionally and very fully. And we both know that about each other. So it's been
Oh, that's cool.
kind of
I'm
adult
happy for you.
relationship for me.
I'm really happy for both of you. So, you keep dropping the Lonely Planet thing. Tell me, what was that? How did that come about, and what did you do, and what's going on with it?
Oh my gosh. So, like I said, that was the last show that we produced on our stage before we shut for COVID. Um, and it was a wonderful production. And during the course of that show, Tommy Hepler was the director, and Tommy had been in Lonely Planet with Troy Nickerson. They played the two characters in Lonely Planet 22 years ago at Civic, and they had gone to state and regional and national competitions and won Best Actor. They gave them both Best Actor for 22 years ago
Oh,
for that production. So we were super, super fortunate to have Tommy as our director for that. He came in with really a good knowledge of that script and what these characters were all about. So Robert and Lucas, who were at that time best friends and roommates, got cast in those roles, and the chemistry that they had on stage was just palpable. The story that they told through the course of that script was beautiful and heartwarming and heart-wrenching, all of the things that you hope for when you go to see a show. And so we decided
right.
during the run of that show, again, this is pre-COVID, that we were going to take that show to state competition and then hopefully to regional and nationals. Well, of course, COVID hit and we had to shut down. So
Yeah.
in about July of last year, the AACT, American Association of Community Theaters, decided that they were going to do everything virtually. So no state or regional competitions. They just had every community theater submit a 30-minute clip of a show that they had done in the prior year. So we submitted a 30-minute clip of Lonely Planet and got into the top 38 in the nation. And then they had a big adjudication where they watched them all again and judged all the little particulars of everything. And we found ourselves in the top 12 community theaters in the nation. And we just got word of
That's right.
that in January. So that was a big deal, finding out that we were, in the top 12. And rather than travel to a competition, which is normally what you would do, we would have had to pack up everything and travel to Lexington, Kentucky. But instead of doing that, they got a Broadway film crew who films theater specifically to tour the United States and go to all 12 of the community theaters that are the top 12 and film their 1 hour competition piece. Crazy. It was so, so cool. So last Monday, Colvin Theatrical showed up along with AACT member Ron Ziegler, who's been adjudicating for 35 years. They came to our little theater and we had it all clean and tidy and looking great. And I had redone the set for Lonely Planet. And so everything was ready to go. The boys had 10 days to relearn all their lines. Like it was a pretty fast and furious process, but they
Sure.
showed up and set up all of their camera equipment. It took them a couple hours because there's so much technology that they filled our little theater with. running cords out through the lobby. So the sound engineer and the main director guy for the cameras were in the lobby at tables with earphones on, while the 4 cameramen were in our little auditorium filming everything. Yeah, so I got to sit in the lobby and listen to the director, um, not the director of our show, but the director of the camera work, say, zoom in camera 3, camera 4, yes, pan, pan. Oh, get his hand, good job. I'm listening to them communicate to each other as I'm watching this beautiful production take shape on his computer screen as they're moving from camera to camera. It was the most exciting experience. I told everyone after, I think it's the best day of my theater career. And I've had a lot of good days in my theater career, but it was just so fun and so interesting. And the boys did probably the best. I call them boys, they're men, but they did the best performance I'd ever seen out of them. So we all
I
walked
want
away.
to cry just listening to you
Oh
talk
my gosh.
about it.
It was very, we all cried. We did. We all cried
Yeah.
afterward. Just how beautiful it was. They were really impressed with everything that we did, which was great. And we walked away, all of us, Tommy and the actors and the stage manager and our light people and myself, we walked away from it knowing that we put everything we had into that competition piece.
Oh, what's really great is you got to meet them. You got to see them do their thing and all of that. And that's what we're talking about. They got to meet you. They got to see what you do in your own environment. So that connection, you just don't know. You just don't know what could happen. I mean, you're still a youngin'. Some really exciting things are coming. I can feel it. That's so
That's
great.
so cool.
So we know that you got into the theater at age 5, which I would love to have seen some of that. When did the when did the theater actually get into you?
Oh, well, I went to college at Ohio University. I had a full ride scholarship, to do whatever I wanted. I could choose whatever I wanted to do. And
Wow.
yeah, I was blessed with a great academic scholarship. And at first, I thought I wanted to be an English teacher or something to do with words. I was always interested in reading, and I wrote comic books even at a young age. And I met my first boyfriend Vic when I was 19 at Ohio University. He was a theater major, and I started following him around to all the shows and watching what he was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love it. So very quickly, my freshman year of college, I switched to being a theater major. I was in multiple productions there at Ohio University, directed a few off campus. Um, and then my junior year, in the middle of my junior year, I started partying a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And I stopped going to college, and I lost that scholarship, and that led to about 20 years of debauchery. I lived a pretty dark life: homelessness, drug addiction, bouncing around the country, just trying to find myself, in and out of short-term relationships, ignoring my family, just all the bad stuff that comes with drinking and drugging. I experienced, until I was 36. And then I decided I was done. I went to rehab. I had become a meth addict when I moved out here to Washington. I followed my parents
Mm.
here because my dad got a church out here. Um, and I followed him out here trying to escape a cocaine addiction, and was introduced to methamphetamines and fell into that world for a while. Um, I went to rehab and got off the drugs, but the drinking was still there, and it was pretty debilitating. I had become a manager at Cyrus O'Leary's restaurant downtown when Cyrus O'Leary's was still here on Main Street, and hid my drinking pretty well. I mean, because I had been a drug addict for a while, so I knew how to hide things and manipulate people. So the drinking was not hard to hide. But inside it was just tearing me up. I didn't realize how far down it was taking me. And um, I had a roommate, a girlfriend of mine that I worked with, who herself was an alcoholic and wanted to get sober. And she knew that I had been through rehab, and she asked me to take her to an AA meeting. So I did. And she's been sober ever since. That was 14 years ago. And I didn't get sober at that time, though. I just kept drinking, thinking that as long as I wasn't doing the drugs, I was fine. But man, alcohol took me down hard, took me down really hard. And one day I just decided that I could no longer participate in mind altering substances. So it was St. Patrick's Day 2009. I was working at Cyrus O'Leary's, which was an Irish themed,
Oh,
pub,
yes, I remember.
right on the parade route. So I'm dressed
Right.
like a big gay leprechaun. I've got glitter hairspray and mascara and beads with shot glasses everywhere and green lederhosen, the whole deal, because we all dressed up for St. Patrick's Day. And that's the day that I had decided that I was going to quit. So I got done with work at 7 o'clock, and I remember walking out in front of the restaurant and I started bawling because I didn't know what to do. But I remembered that I had taken my friend Sarah to a AA meeting. So I beelined it for that little church up on 3rd Avenue across from McDonald's. And I walked up those creaky little steps just crying. And I opened the door, and it was a candlelight meeting. And there was about probably 20 people in there. And they all stopped and looked at me because the meeting had already started. And I said, I'm an alcoholic and I don't know what to do. And they said, sit down, you're in the right place. And I just kept sobbing. And this old man named Andy reached over and he grabbed my knee and he said, you're going to be okay, kid. And I believed him. I believed that I was going to be okay. And I was. And I haven't had to have a drink or a drug since. So my life took off again in a great way. I adopted I had adopted my nephew a year prior to getting sober. So I adopted him at 14. And so he had seen the worst of my life. I mean, he saw where the alcohol had taken me. Um, and then I got sober and got to be a good parent to him and see him into adulthood. And now I'm a grandparent. It's crazy. Um, I got to go back to college. I did everything online while I was managing the restaurant and got 2 degrees in design. And my senior year, 2014, I was getting ready to graduate, and I went to Lake City Playhouse. I hadn't been in a theater in 20 years, and I went and saw Sweeney Todd the musical, and it was phenomenal. I could not believe what they had done on that little stage, and Abby
Yeah,
Crawford,
right.
Brendan Brady, and all these wonderful people who ended up becoming great friends of mine since then were on stage just performing their butts off. It was so incredible. So I got on the mailing list because I was like, I got to see more theater. I haven't been in theater in 20 years. Um, I was 4 years sober at the time. And like I said, just graduating college. So I got on their mailing list, and then they sent out a mailer for auditions for Les Mis, and that's what at the time was one of my favorite musicals. And I asked, I know, right? So I asked the owner of the company. I was working now at Tomato Street in Coeur d'Alene, same company as Cyrus O'Leary's, and I said, hey, I have assistant managers who know what they're doing. Can I audition for this show and switch my schedule a little bit and work in the daytime? He goes, yeah, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. He's like a second dad to me. He totally saw me through the worst of my life and the best of my life. And so I auditioned for Les Mis and got 8 little ensemble roles, all the little fun stuff where you don't have to really learn too much.
Right, right.
It was so fun, and I had a blast. And then the next show after that was the musical Comedy Murders of 1940, and I got one of the leads in that show. And during that show was when I was the month I was graduating college, and George Green, who was the artistic director there at Lake City Playhouse, came up to me and said, hey, I heard you're an artist. I said, well, I draw comic books, and I'm graduating this month with my degree in graphic design. So yes, I'm an artist. What are you looking for? And he said, I have a set over in Spokane that I need painted. Will you paint it for me? And I said, I don't know how to paint. I said, I've never picked up a paintbrush. And he said, I'll give you $600 if you can do it in 10 days. I said, I'll do it.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd work at the restaurant from 9 to 5. Then I'd head to the theater and perform on stage from 7 till 10. And then I'd drive over here to Spokane and paint from 11 till about 3 a.m. And I did that for 10 days straight. And it was the set for Boeing at the Old Modern Theater. And had a blast doing it. Fell in love again with theater design. And it got pretty good reviews. I mean, the show itself was phenomenal, but they even mentioned my set in the paper. They were like, the scenic design by Jeremy Whittington. And I thought, oh, my name's in the paper, it's something to do with theater. That's really cool. And then George
Yes.
approached me and asked me if I'd be his resident designer for both modern theaters. And yeah, so I left a really great paying job that I'd been at for 14 years with good benefits, and took a very, very low paying job with no benefits other than the fact that I got to live my life as an artist. So that's
Right.
what started, that's what started this whole career path. And I've got to be a resident designer at multiple theaters, got to go to Texas and work down there for 3 years. My artwork just kind of blew up and blossomed and flourished in ways that I had never expected that would happen. And walked off the plane here. When I came back home, my grandson um, passed away very early, very young, just 2 weeks actually. But my granddaughter was being born, and I didn't want to miss that because I wasn't up here for my grandson's passing. So I moved back up here for that, and Wes Dietrich was running Stage Left at the time. He's a good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, and he kind of told me that he was going to be retiring, that he thought I would be a good fit for taking on Stage Left. And sure enough, I feel like I'm at home. I mean, it feels like the perfect fit. I have a great board of directors who supports me and lifts me up and makes sure I'm on track with everything. And the public's embraced me pretty well. And yeah, I really just feel at home right where I am right now.
Well, I know everyone I've ever spoken to about you just absolutely adores you, and I can see why. I'm so filled with emotion right now. What a testimony. Amazing. And when you bounce back, baby, you bounce back big time. I mean, you had this little black hole and you came out, phew,
And
um,
yeah,
and just every part of your psyche and your talents and who you are are just firing off, and you're helping others at the same time. So you're just
no,
really
that's
sharing your whole self, which is really what I love to see in people, is just share your whole self.
absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I don't take credit for any of really of the successes that I have in my life. It is
I
all
bet you
God.
don't.
I call God the great artist. That's what I like to, how I conceptualize God. And God has totally blessed me in ways that I could not imagine. And I think you really touched on it too. I really think it's when we can turn our lives to focusing on helping others that the universe blesses us in ways that we don't get to know how it's going to turn out. I just do the next right thing, whatever's in front of me, help the
Right,
next right person, and then the universe
right,
provides exactly what's supposed to be there. Um,
right,
call it karma or whatever you want to call it. I call it God, but everybody can conceptualize that differently. Um,
right.
yeah, the more I can get outside of myself and think what I can do for other people or the community or the world, the more I'm taken care of without having to worry about myself. It's so weird. It seems like a paradox, but once you start living it, it just becomes the reality of life.
No, I'm right there with you all the way. In fact, there's a Zig Ziglar quote that says, You can have everything you want if you help enough other people get what they want."
Oh, so true.
And And it is so true. It is so true. Get your eyes off yourself and just get really busy building up other people, and you'll be well taken care of. You have written a couple of children's books, or you've illustrated them. Have you written and illustrated, or just illustrated?
No,
Because
I
I looked them up
illustrated.
and they're adorable.
The author is April Salazar out of Houston, Texas, and
Okay.
she had seen some of my work and asked me to coffee, and we got together and talked about what style she was looking for, and it went through a couple iterations of what that would look like. And the first one was a process. It was a long process. It took about probably 6 months to really bring this children's book to life. It's a story about her daughters, really, two girls who find out that one of them has called the stars down into their backyard to play together and dance around with the stars and make star angels instead of snow angels. Really, really lovely little book. And then after the success of that one, she wrote another one, Superboy Maximo in Underwear, which is about a boy putting on his underwear and tying a towel around his neck and being a little superhero around his house. And it's a fun little adventure too. And she's written a few books after that since then. But that was a really cool experience to adapt my kind of superhero storytelling to a very, very young age model group. So it was cool.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So, tell me about the Disney thing that you've done. You did something.
Well, not for Disney. We did Disney's Newsies. I've done a
Oh,
couple.
yeah.
Of
Okay.
yeah,
So,
I carved some sculptures for Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame that was down in San Antonio, and that was designed by Nick Ponting. I wasn't the designer on that set, but the
Okay.
entire set, including those sculptures, actually sold to an opera house in Canada. So that was the first kind of taste I got of actually creating a piece of art that got to travel completely somewhere else and be used in a different way. And then I designed Disney's Newsies, which is, it was one of the biggest sets, one of the biggest casts I'd ever seen. I was actually on stage for that too. I played Wiesel, the kind of villainous guy who gets all the kids to sell the newspapers for really cheap so he can get all the money, you know? He's kind of a brute. I got to play him, and I also got to play Teddy Roosevelt, who at the end of the day saves the day by enacting new laws for child labor laws. You know, I got to play both of those in Newsies, but
Oh
that
my gosh.
set, yeah, it was so super cool. That set got packed up and packaged and sent to a company that rents it out to different colleges, high schools, and community theaters. So that set has traveled all over the Southwest. I went to Arkansas, Louisiana, and then back into a couple places in Texas. So it's kind of cool to know that something that you did, because theater is so fleeting, you know, we're on stage and tell a story, and then we tear down the set and go to something else, you know? So it's so fleeting, but to know that something kind of has a sense of permanence was a whole different experience, really.
Like this tender-hearted Orson Welles kind of thing about you. I love it. It's just like you just have this ability to transform yourself so quickly, but you're just a little teddy bear at the same time. I just love it. I just love it.
Thanks.
Good for
Yeah,
you. I'm just so
when I
thrilled.
act on stage, I tend to get the quirky, weird roles, which is kind of fun. It's always a blast to just explore being somebody else for a little while, you know.
Good for you. Well, this has just been incredible. I know that you have a schedule to keep, but honestly, I'm just filled with emotion by your presence and your story and the things you've shared and just your persona. And I'm really grateful that you came on and talked to me. And where can we find you? Where is the Stage Left Theater for those who aren't aware? Because there'll be people from all over the place watching this.
So,
Hopefully.
if you want to keep up with us, the easiest way to keep up with the day to day is to like us and friend us on Facebook, Stage Left Theater. Our
Good.
website, it's easy. It's stagelefttheater.org. It's theater
Great.
with an R at the end, not an RE. So it's ER, the American.
Gotcha.
Yep. Stagelefttheater.org. My personal webpage is, as you said, jeremycreates.com. So you can see some of my artwork and set designs there. And Stage Left is at 108 West 3rd Avenue, kind of the corner of 3rd and Brown there downtown. Just a little storefront theater, 70-seat little theater. It's really
Great.
intimate and fun and full of beautiful people.
That's so great. Well, I'm going to make a little slideshow of some of the imagery that you've sent me, and I might have to go picking off the internet for more. But yeah, this has just been fabulous. I'm just hiring a kite. So thank you so much,
Thank you so
Jeremy,
much
for
for
coming
asking
on.
me. It was
Looking forward to when we can like meet and give each other a big hug.
absolutely. I'm a big
And
hugger.
just keep up the good work. I'll be watching from the cheap seats. All right.